Was South Alabama bailed out by the officials against Troy? It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We'll go over App State rolling past JMU in the second half and Arkansas State blowing out Georgia State. And we'll get back to the South Alabama game here momentarily. Thanks for all the feedback on the quarterback rankings. I thought the West would be a little bit more controversial than the East. Maybe it was a Sunday. Again, keep them comments coming. And again, the top three in the West, Gio Lopez, Jalen Raynor, and Braylon Braxton could all be interchangeable. Certainly not going to argue too much with what your thoughts are compared to what my thoughts are. But thanks for all the feedback that we did get. All right, so South Alabama and Troy playing in a battle for the belt. And it looked like a typical South Alabama ball game, at least over the last few weeks. A little bit of a slow start, but that's the way South Alabama plays. They're not a very explosive basketball team. And then the defense settles in, and they started to pull away. About a 9-point lead, and then a 15-point lead, and then a 20-point lead at half. Troy with 11 turnovers, South Alabama with 1 turnover. 42-22 at half. And then Troy comes out. Let me get this specific. They got, was it a 9-point immediate run? It was a 9-point run. It was 44-22, and then it was 44-31. All right. So they cut the lead by almost half. All right. But by the time I was looking at it, which I probably shouldn't have been at work, but I was checking it out as much as I could, it was 50-34. So South Alabama had settled down. So it got almost cut by half, but it was up to 16. So it was 20. It got down to 11. And it was 16, all right? And it was South Alabama's basketball. And I know this is not the case, but it almost looked like South Alabama was throwing the basketball game. I mean, it was ridiculous. So with 14:34 left to go, J.J. Wheat makes a three-pointer, makes it 50-34. And I'm one of those guys that, saying, I like to predict the scores, and I'm looking at it. They need like 15 more points. They need 65 points, and they'll win the basketball game because Troy only has 34, and they're not going to score 35 in the last 14 and a half minutes. So they should cruise to a victory. They'll probably get 70, and this will be a 70-55 easy victory, right? But then it all falls apart, and it became a little bit lazy. And Troy got a little bit more confidence, and the defense became a little bit tougher for South Alabama to deal with. But it was a ridiculous bad pass by South Alabama into the backcourt, but Barry Dunning Jr. doesn't go after it, and instead of just a turnover, and we take it out of bounds, Troy gets a layup. Then Barry Dunning Jr., a lazy pass inbounds, turns into a turnover, turns into a layup. And then I think another quick turnover, and Troy gets it back, and it's a foul on J.J. Wheat. So quickly to recap, and let me get this straight. I want to make sure we understand what it was. So a foul on J.J. Wheat with 13:09 to go. All right. Again, with so about a minute and a half after that three, some possessions were changing, but it was In fact, with 13-41, we'll say. Thomas Dowd had missed a three-pointer. Myles Corey with a rebound. Okay. With 13:09 to go, 30 seconds or so, South Alabama had 2 turnovers and a third one with a foul. Troy had 2 buckets and the ball. So South Alabama went from up 16 and the ball to up 12, and Troy had the ball. And Troy just kept on coming. Okay. Fast forward to the end of the ball game. It is now a 4-point ball game. And Troy has the basketball, and Conroy has the ball. The exact score would be, I want to get this straight so we all know what we're talking about here. It would be, because they pulled within 1. Conroy makes a three-pointer, so it would have been 62-58. And for whatever reason, Judah Brown just leaves Conroy wide open. Even the broadcaster on the South Alabama broadcasts says, why are you leaving him alone? Don't leave him alone to cover the guy in the corner. You got to cover Conroy. Hits a three-pointer. Now it's a 1-point ball game. And South Alabama ends up missing some layups, all right? I think Troy missed some shots as well. But South Alabama ends up missing some layups. And Troy gets a rebound. South Alabama ends up fouling Troy on the rebounds. Troy ends up making a couple of free throws. They end up taking the lead by 1, 63-62. All right, here comes the controversy. All right, Myles Corey goes to the bucket, misses a layup out of bounds off of Troy. Now, 2 things happens on this play, all right? To me, it appeared the ball was off of South Alabama's Randy Brady. Pretty clearly, if you ask me. It looked like Thomas Dowd had it in his hands, and Brady knocked it out of his hands to go out of bounds. Okay. The thing is, before that happened, it certainly appeared that Jackson Fields hit Corey on the arm while he was going up for the layup. All right. The first time I saw it, I thought it was much more of a foul than it was. A little bit of a love tap. That doesn't change the fact that he was fouled going up for a layup. All right. Hit his arm. Again, not very hard, but hit him to where it should have been called a foul. I don't know how it was missed. All 3 officials are looking up at the ball. He hit his arm. It was not called. I don't know if it was a makeup call to go out of bounds back to South Alabama, but that's what they called. Okay. Now, inbounds on the baseline, basically a lob to Barry Dunning Jr. He catches it. Same time, Thomas Dowd jumps straight up in the air. Dunning shoots it. Dowd's called for a foul. I thought it was bailed out. I thought Dowd went straight up in the air. Dunning does go to the free throw line and hits both free throws. The first one I thought was much more flush from my memory. The second one bounced on the rim and finally rolled in. I think it did roll in. I think it kind of landed on the back of the rim and rolled in. Ends up giving credit to his dad. Great quote. Said they will go to the Y and just shoot free throws. That's all they would do. He gave the game ball to his dad, which is pretty cool. Hometown kid from Mobile winning a ball game against South Alabama's rival. I do think the refs bailed South Alabama out. They did miss the foul on Corey's call, on Corey's drive. They missed the out of bounds going to Troy. And I don't think that Dunning Jr. was fouled. I think Dowd jumped straight up in the air. That's my thing. Give credit to Dunning Jr. for hitting those free throws, but South Alabama made that game as difficult as possible. That should not have been the case. Give Troy a lot of credit for coming all the way back and I think the refs bailed South Alabama out. I do. South Alabama is in really good shape to be a top 2 seed. The rest of the way, they're going to be favored in most of their games. They got to go to Arkansas State. They have, let's see what they got here. They're at Monroe. They got Troy coming up next Saturday, so that's a big ball game. All right. Yeah. So they're at Monroe. They're at Troy. Troy will probably be favored in that one. Then they get Monroe at home. They're at the Cajuns. They're at Coastal, so a little bit of a road trip there. They're at Akron for that MAC contest. They're hosting Marshall. They're hosting Texas State. At Arkansas State, that's a big ball game. They're at Texas State. That may be tough. Then they're at Southern Miss, and they are hosting Louisiana. Again, they will be favored. How many games have they got left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me see what Akron is. I have no idea what Akron is this year. Akron's 12-5 and 9-0 at home, and they're playing at Akron. So that's a huge ball game to help out any kind of RPI. So they won't be favored at Akron. They won't be favored at Troy, and they won't be favored at Arkansas State. So what I say, 9 games. So they'll be favored in 6 of those ball games. Let's see if they can win those 6 ball games. You're not forced to win at Troy now. You don't have to win the Akron ball game. It'd be nice to win the Arkansas State game. We'll see. You certainly don't have to. You've done the job with Troy, and you've done the job with Arkansas State. So you've put yourself in good position. None of those are must wins, but you start losing at Louisiana, at Coastal. You lose to Marshall, you lose to Texas State at home, or Southern Miss on the road. Then you're putting yourself in a bind where you got to make up for one of those games you should have won to a game that you have to win. That's going to be tougher. That's all I'm saying. South Alabama's put themselves in a really good position. They don't want to screw it up later on. All right, let's take a timeout. I know it's all one division, but let's go to the East, as we would say. App State is looking really good these days. Let's take a timeout. We'll talk about that when we come back after I tell you about Prize Picks. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your pick hits, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. For me, I'm all about the hot takes this season. This week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at Saquon Barkley for more than 100 rushing yards and Jaden Daniels for more than 200 passing yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prize Picks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's go through more of the Sunbelt action from Saturday. And a little bit of a slow start for App State. And I am told, like South Alabama, they like to play the defense and play a slow offensive game. And they very much did that against JMU. It was 20-20 at half. Nobody was scoring in this ball game. And a little bit like that ODU South Alabama ball game from, I guess, last weekend, the tone was set. Excuse me. The tone was set First thing coming out of half, App State started on a 12-4 run. It was 32 to 24. So that's a 12-4 run. And it got up to, I think, 11, maybe 12. But James Madison just did not threaten App State at all in the second half. The second half was just not close, despite it only being an 8-point differential in the second half. James Madison was just not within an arm's length after App State took control. This was a Myles Tate ball game, along with Dior Connors. He actually had the big ball game scoring-wise, not C.J. Huntley. C.J. Huntley only had 7 points, 8 rebounds. Dior Connors had 18 points on 6 of 9 shooting and stroking it from 3, 6 of 8. All right. Myles Tate, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Myles Tate doing Myles Tate things. Not a whole lot of production off the App State bench. Mark Friedman had 10 points. He led all starters, only one in double figures. And Bryce Lindsey had 13 as App State defeats the Dukes 58 to 50. App State improves to 11-7. They are 5-2. JMU drops to 3-4 in the conference. Should mention South Alabama is 6-1 in the conference. App State remains 1 game behind, and those two teams do not play each other. All right. But it really is. We may be looking at an App State South Alabama showdown in the Sunbelt Championship. We shall see. Long way to go before we get there. All right. Elsewhere, the Cajuns hold off ULM. Not pretty, but a win and move on, 65 to 60. The Cajuns, for all their woes this year, have now swept ULM. The Warhawks still looking for their first win in the Sunbelt, dropped to 0-7. Cajuns are 4-3. They had 2 wins in non-conference play. They have 4 in the Sunbelt. Take that for what it's worth. Kentrell Garnett has set a school record for most games played. He scored 18. Mustafa, he had 12 for the Cajuns. Jalen Bolden had 16 for ULM, and Jerry Negapote had 11. Off the bench, Jacob Wilson had 15 for ULM. The Cajuns are currently tied for, technically, I believe that is 4th. All right. Elsewhere in the Sunbelt, actually, Texas State won in overtime, 85-82. It was Colton Benson who hit a curl 3-pointer with about a minute and a half left to go for the go-ahead points. He had 23, second on the club in the ball game. Tylen Pope led the way with all scores with 28. He had a big ball game, 8 out of 20 from the floor, 11 out of 14 from the free throw line. He had 12 rebounds, 5 blocks, was in foul trouble with 4, but managed to stay in the ball game and not foul out. As again, the Bobcats defeat Southern Miss 85-82 in overtime. Dylan Dawson chipped in with 10 points, and Austin Green off the bench had 10 points. For Southern Miss, Naftali Alvarez had 17 points. Kobe Montgomery had 16, and Denaji Harris had 18 points and 14 rebounds. Texas State improves to 4-3. Southern Miss goes in the other direction. They go to 3-4. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll wrap up the action from Saturday's action, and we'll look ahead to this week's action. There really is only one really big ball game this week in the Sunbelt. 2 games on Wednesday. Well, I don't know what on Saturday. I didn't look at this Saturday. There's one really big ball game on Thursday. We'll see what happens on Saturday. Actually, I think the Cajuns or the South Alabama has a big ball game on Saturday against Troy rematch. But on Wednesday and Thursday, there only seem to be one big ball game, and it is a biggie. So we'll do that as well after I tell you about FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Losing the voice a little bit. Hasn't happened in a minute. Only gave one tour on Sunday, so a little bit odd. No, excuse me. All right. Let's see. We didn't do all of them. Arkansas State with an easy win. All Arkansas State over Georgia State, 85-59. This was a blowout from the get-go. Arkansas State 44-19 in the first half. A little bit more even in the second half because Arkansas State called off the dogs, so to speak, 41-40. Let's see here. Kobe Julian didn't play all that much, only 14 minutes. I think a lot of guys got some extra time in this. In fact, Terrence Ford Jr. was the only starter who played more than 26 minutes. In fact, Terran Todd only played 26, had 12 points. Joseph Pinion, he of the three-point shot, led the scores with 14 points. He only played 24 minutes. Terrence Ford scored 8 points. He scored 8 points in 30 minutes. Kobe Julian, 14 minutes, 2 of 5 shooting. He's had 7 points. Nelson in 15 minutes scored 8 points. Arkansas State just played everybody. A lot of guys off the bench. Marshall played 18 minutes. Dominguez played 14 minutes. Darian Ford had 13 minutes. Feltz had 16 minutes. Coach Hodgins played everybody beyond the starters who all scored. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys off the bench scored. So once they got that 44-19 lead, there was not a whole reason to play the starters. For Georgia State, 4 of their starters did score. Malachi Brown played 20 minutes but did not score. The other 4 did hit double figures. Nick McMullen had 15. Cesare Edwards had 15. Jelani Hamilton had 13. And Tenari Lane had 12. Arkansas State improves to 5-2. Again, that 1.5 games behind South Alabama, if you will. And Georgia State, drops to 3-4. And a couple of more ball games, actually. Georgia Southern beats Old Dominion 67-63. I think Georgia Southern all of a sudden has won 2 in a row. They improved to 3-4 in the conference, 10-9 overall. Old Dominion has not been able to build on their big win over South Alabama. They've lost 2 in a row. This was actually a pretty good ball game. Georgia Southern went to halftime leading 30-22. But this was a good ball game in the second half. Georgia Southern was kind of leading most of the way, but Old Dominion caught up and actually had a 60-59 lead with 2:21 to go. Sean Dura-Gordon made a layup, but then Georgia Southern outscored Old Dominion 8-3. So they actually went on an 8-3 run to end the ball game. Doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but when there's only 2 minutes to go, that is a big deal. And so they never got closer than 2 after that. Hulliman made a layup for Georgia Southern, and then he had another layup. So they went from down 60 to 59 to 63-60. Jaden Johnson made a free throw to make it 63-61, but Bradley Douglas made a three-pointer, and then they got as close as 3, and that was all she wrote. So Old Dominion had that big ball game against South Alabama and wasn't able to, build off of that, which has got to be really infuriating to Mike Jones. Played exactly the way they wanted to on the road, which at the time was a huge crowd for South Alabama, and played really well against what is right now the best team in the Sunbelt, and just didn't play well. Against App State, that's one thing, but they just didn't show up against App State, not at all. And Georgia Southern is just not that good right now. And they just didn't play well. I guess they played okay. They played okay against Georgia Southern, but that's a game that you'd like to win at home. Losing to Georgia Southern on the road would be one thing, but you should be able to beat Georgia Southern at home. And they just came up a little bit short. They played okay. They just lost. Shouldn't go too overboard on that one, but that's a team that you should be beating at home is what I would say. All right. And elsewhere, Marshall gets a win. They beat Coastal Carolina 77-64. They improved to 4-3. Coastal Carolina drops to 1-6. Aniki Keelan, sorry about that. He had 23 to lead 4 scorers in double figures. Minko had 18. Spear had 16. Dawson had 10. And Hines and Mayo each had 13 for Coastal Carolina. So quickly, South Alabama 6-1. Arkansas State and App State are tied for second. They are 5-2. Troy, Texas State, Marshall, the Cajuns are all tied for fourth. And then after that, JMU, Georgia Southern, Southern Miss, and Georgia State are all 3-4. Coastal Carolina 1-6. Monroe pulling up the rear 0-7. Quickly, on a Wednesday, we got 2 basketball games. And again, not exactly great matchups. You do have Old Dominion hosting JMU. Old Dominion is 4-3. Remember, they were 4-1 in first place. They've dropped 2 since. So can Old Dominion take care of James Madison at home? JMU is 3-4. And Coastal Carolina is playing Georgia Southern. Both those teams have losing records, but all of a sudden, Georgia Southern, is playing at home, and they have won 2 games in a row. Then on Thursday, I think this is going to be one of the first games that is on national TV. We'll get to it at the end. South Alabama is playing on the road in Monroe. Should be a winning ball game. Texas State going to Lafayette to take on the Cajuns. Both teams are 4-3, so that actually is a pretty good matchup, and that is for seeding in the Sunbelt Conference tournament. Marshall is 4-3. Georgia State is 3-4. Georgia State had been playing well, but has lost a couple in a row. Southern Miss taking on Troy. Southern Miss 3-4. Troy is 4-3. But the big ball game, of course, it's 9 p.m. Eastern time. It is what it is. But it is nationally televised on ESPN2. Arkansas State 14-5, 5-2. High-powered offense against the stingy defense. App State 11-7, 5-2. In Jonesboro, it is for sole possession of second place, right behind South Alabama. So that's a big ball game and a good opportunity. Hopefully, it'll be a packed arena. I'm sure that it will be. First National Bank Arena. They'll want to show that off on national TV as a Thursday night. Hopefully, the weather will cooperate. That'll be 8 p.m. Central Time, and we'll be able to watch a little bit of it. I do have to work on Friday, although I do have the weekend off. All right. I will say we're going to go see some old Raging Cajuns friends in the western part of Kentucky. We'll get some pictures and post them later on in the weekend. So that is the big ball game, at least on in the first part of the week schedule. Between Wednesday and Thursday, Arkansas State is hosting App State for sole possession of second place. It is that high-powered Arkansas State run and gun offense, shooting threes and going for layups against that slow down, really tough defense of App State. And the idea is, let's see if we can see what the matchup is really quickly. What do we do with it? I did lose it here really quickly, but let's see. Gamecast. Let's see here. I want to see opponents scoring. Yeah. App scores 60, almost 70 points a game. Arkansas State scores almost 80 a game. Here's the difference. App has only given up 62. So if Arkansas State, the closer Arkansas State scores to 70, the better chance they have to win. All right. Now, the problem is Arkansas State didn't score that against South Alabama. Of course, that game was on the road and without Kobe Julian. This game is at home and with Kobe Julian. So we will see. Should be a great matchup with Darren Todd and Myles Tate. This should be a really good matchup. We will watch half of it at night and then the other half when I wake up to work out. All right. Hashtag humble brag. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Hope you enjoyed the bonus episodes with the rankings of the quarterbacks. We'll keep on doing that. Coaches, teams, and so forth, and so on. Maybe we'll do coaches this week. All right. Guess what you guys think heading into spring ball, which is really, for some teams, not all that far away. All right. Again, thank you so much. You've been watching and tuning in to a Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.